Freedom Shock signs and symptoms. Number one, it's been 3 months and you still don't know who you are.
Shock syndrome. I think that is spot on. I'm going through it right now. My retirement ceremony was 3 months ago. I've been in 20 years and I'm currently in a skill bridge. And I gotta tell you, the shock comes from how fast everything happens. So for me, in a matter of a couple weeks, I outprocessed the med group where I worked. I moved off base because if you retire or separate, you cannot live on base. So I got a new house, and I got a SkillBridge civilian job where I wear civilian clothes, I work with civilians, and suddenly, overnight practically, I'm in a different life. And it really makes you question who you are without the uniform. Now, I know my life will be better without it, right? I've done this for 20 years. My body and mind is broken, and my family deserves time with me. So I know it's for the better, but it is hard to not accept these weird feelings of not knowing who I am without the uniform. Who is Josh White really? And so if anyone is going through that the way I am now, I say just take a knee. I stopped my podcast, I stopped most of my social media, and I started focusing more on my future jobs, and my family, and doing all the fun family stuff. I just went on a field trip with my daughter to the zoo, and it's been that downtime, that disconnect, that is kind of pointing me in the right direction. Also, where the shock comes from is the VA. Because the amount of information about the VA, how important it is to claim everything and to go to the doctor beforehand and make sure you do this and that, it's just an overwhelming amount of information being thrown at you. Then when you go through the VA, there's one appointment in particular that goes from start to finish medically of your career. And if you've been in 20 years, that appointment took me about 7 hours. And what no one warned me about, and I'm warning you about now, just giving you the heads up, is that emotionally, it was absolutely draining to revisit every mental health issue, physical ailment that I have accumulated over 20 years. Like, it was painful. By the end of it, I was wiped, completely wiped and exhausted. Now let's talk about the most stressful part. If the SkillBridge doesn't pan out to a job, you now have this window of time where you need a job, you're not getting your retirement if you're retirement eligible, and you're not getting your VA. It's about 3 months of no pay. And if you don't have a job and you have a lot of bills and you have a house and you have a family, pretty much the most stressful, terrifying position that I've personally ever experienced. To the point where I couldn't sleep. I was, my hands would be shaking thinking about it. My fight or flight freeze response was there almost daily. You're working on your resume and everyone says it's trash. Then you fix it to their liking and you show it to someone else and then they say it's trash. And then you're left wondering, well, what is a good resume? And there's just so much conflicting information, and all this is just barreling down on you, seemingly out of nowhere. These problems didn't exist for me a few months ago, right? So this shock thing that she's talking about is very real, and I'm glad that she's addressing it. And now that I'm going through it here on the Hero Front podcast, I will be talking to folks like her, and I will be sharing experiences to help prepare you for the other side of service.